join us in another one of our very useful webinars. For this afternoon, we are going to build upon some of the strategies that we have present in our IFDE website. A lot of our grab-and-go videos, we're going to build upon those and add more tools that you can use in your classroom. A lot of these tools are free, and you can use them in your classroom to help improve your students' fundamental math skills and eventually help them score better on their assessments. So without further ado, let me just go ahead and get started. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Ron Cruz. I'm the coordinator of the Caribe Refugee Program here in Hillsborough County in Tampa, Florida. I am also the statewide trainer and facilitator for adult basic education and GED. So a lot of the college and career readiness workshops and webinars and online courses, those are all I have helped in the development of those workshop and modules. So hopefully this will be weaved very seamlessly into what we are trying to accomplish, which is to implement the major shifts in the college and career readiness standards. So do a quick review of those shifts real quick. So first, the first major shift in the college and career readiness standard is focus. So what you're going to notice is with your curriculum, content has been significantly reduced to allow the teachers to focus more on the fundamental skills and have enough time for mastery. The second college and career readiness shift is coherence, meaning a lot of the concepts that you are teaching in your classroom, you follow along the curriculum framework, you're going to find yourself covering them again or reviewing them throughout the year or throughout the semester, depending on how you pace your lessons. And so you find yourself less and less reviewing, but more on building upon the skills that you've taught previously. And lastly is rigor, which we're going to try to address this afternoon. Rigor is one of the most important things, one of the most important shifts, because a lot of that puts our attention as teachers to focus on the conceptual understanding of the students and also the application, but not to forget the procedural fluency. So in our workshop this afternoon, I'm going to focus a lot on what tools are out there online, what are the virtual manipulatives out there online that are free for teachers that have access to technology that you can use in your classroom to help develop the skills of the students. All of the ABE skills that you have to teach your students, how can you do that? How can you expand the four corners of your classroom so that they're also still doing and practicing math when they go home? Again, the objectives of our workshops is pretty straightforward. We're going to look at all of the ways that we plan assessment, how we teach and how we assess our students in the classroom, aligned with the college and career readiness standards. And specifically, we're going to focus on how the use of virtual manipulative would be a powerful tool to really accomplish this objective. Second, we're going to continuously apply the standards of mathematical practice in these instructional strategies. So you'll hear me point out different mathematical practices that I am employing in each of these strategies that I'm going to be teaching you today. And then lastly, we're going to look at the IFDE website and what that IFDE website have to offer in terms of resources. Where can I find these links? Where can I find these materials? Where are these worksheets that you're talking about? Where's the curriculum framework? You know, and or are there mathematical practice posters that I can use in my classroom or distribute to my students so that they can always refer to them when they're doing word problems? So we're going to go ahead and get started. So what I'm going to really focus on today is this excellent tool that I have introduced in in the face-to-face workshops for college and career readiness, ABE Mathematics, the face-to-face workshops, and some of the things that I have done in some other school districts where they saw, oh wow, that's powerful. I wish I knew that website before some of my struggling students came in. I could have used that with them, stick them in a computer and give them an activity, and then they have the liberty to create or illustrate their thinking with the use of these manipulatives. The McGraw-Hill Virtual Manipulatives web app is a web app. You know, it's a free web app. It has been developed in conjunction with the Glencoe McGraw-Hill textbook series. It was developed for K-12, but eventually the series was discontinued, but now it's still, the website is still up. So, and I don't see, it's been up for about 4 years now since its development, and I don't see McGraw-Hill taking it down anytime soon, so might as well take advantage of this web app while it's there. Some of the things that you can see right now in front of your screen are some of the tools and manipulatives that I would like to show to you and illustrate, and I'm going to be demonstrating a lot more. And and one of the things that you can see is a spinner tool. Very powerful tool that we can do in our class, and I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do. You can use this to assign students into random groups, or you can do experimental probabilities with them just to try to compare if the experimental probability of an event happening approaches or is equivalent to the theoretical probability that we teach them. Also geometry, there's a lot of tools in geometry, so some of them, we have the geometric solids, you know, to teach them the volumes and surface area formulas, and then we also have the geoboard. So for two-dimensional areas, finding the missing lengths, Pythagorean theorem, those types of things, you can do them very quickly and very intuitively using the geoboard. You also see here a lot of algebra tools, such as the algebra tiles. The algebra tiles is used in many things, such as solving equations, factoring, or simplifying equations. And you can also use the algebra tiles to multiply, add, subtract polynomials. I've seen some teachers become very creative, and I've seen some teachers also do division of polynomials using the algebra tiles. So that's very interesting to see as well. Another thing that teachers you know, talk about in these face-to-face workshops and when I visit different adult schools is that students really struggle on fractions, and these manipulative web app has a lot of fraction tools, and I'm going to show you one so that you can help develop these skills: adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions, ordering fractions, or even simplifying fractions. So so this is such a powerful tool that I want to spend a little bit of time just to try to explore everything that this web app can do. And again, you do not need to buy this. You do not need to install this into your computer. So anywhere you have access to a computer. Another good thing is this is also this can also be pulled up or used using your mobile devices and tablet computers. So if you have those touchscreen tablet computers, all the more better. What I also do is I also create worksheets for my students out of these virtual manipulatives, because for me it's sometimes very difficult to create my own worksheet that align with something that I already do in a class. Sometimes I would just take a snippet of something from the web app and then use it as a worksheet or a quiz for my students to try to give them an informal assessment. Now let me just quickly talk about the different tools that you have here so that you're familiar with what can you do, the real power of this. Because in the face-to-face workshop, I simply showed them how the colored counters can be used to model addition and subtraction and multiplication of integers, but I really didn't dive into showing what are the powerful tools that are in this particular web app. So we have the hand tool, we have the text tool in order for you to type the text. The hand tool is also is a tool that you use to grab different objects from the screen and put them in different places or relocate them. The pen tool allows you to write on the screen. It's very difficult to do that using the mouse, but if you have a tablet computer or a mobile device or a touchscreen computer, which is with a stylus, it just modifies the power of this tool, because it now allows you to write, and it allows my student to show their work and show their computation by hand. There's also a straight line tool for drawing different shapes, drawing lines of best fit and things like that. For geometry and measurement, we also have a ruler. The ruler is just that. It teaches my students different measurements. You know, if I want to measure a particular height of a triangle, I use a ruler. There is also a stopwatch. I'm going to show you how to use a stopwatch. Sometimes I would ask my students to come to the board and solve something, or go to the screen and solve something, and I put a stopwatch to kind of give me an idea how long it takes for an average student to solve a particular word problem, or to solve a particular equation. There's also a protractor tool. I use that to measure angles and to teach my students different angle measures. And I'm going to demonstrate all of this to you. What I'm doing right now is just talking about what each tool, what each button does. And then lastly, a timer. This one is very useful to me as well, because sometimes I would do games with my students, and sometimes if I wanted to develop procedural fluency, I wanted them to work off of the clock, you know. So sometimes I would give them an equation, and I will give them 60 seconds to solve the equation, and they try to beat that timer. So I find that timer a very powerful tool when I use it with my students. The other components of the toolbar is also the help menu. So it gives you a catalog of other different help questions, Q&As, and things like that. The clear background, if you use a background and you want to take that out, or because you want to move on to a different activity, or you can use that. There's also the clear objects, and I'm going to show you what are the differences between an object and a background. And then the next one is print screen. I want to talk about the print screen a little bit, because I found that some of my students, they like printing their work after they work it off of, let's say, their tablet computer. Again, if your tablet computer is not hooked up to your wireless network and your printer is not hooked up to your wireless network, it would be very difficult to print out of a mobile device. But sometimes I would take my students to the computer labs, and then therefore they can print their work and then take it home for review. I just want to give you a caveat. You might want to test this first before you do this with your students, because sometimes the print screen does not work. So it works especially well if the computer is hooked up directly to the computer. The printer is hooked up directly to the computer. But if not, you may want to test it first before bringing the students and asking the students to print it off at the computer lab. Another thing is recycle. If you wanted to throw away or delete certain items, you can simply drag them into this trash can, and it will automatically disappear out of your screen. Now, at the middle of the toolbar, you will see this line colors. These pen and line colors just assigns a particular color to the lines that you draw and your handwriting when you use the pen tool. Okay, so let me show you all of these tools real quick and what they look like. So I'm just going to switch my screen out of. So when you log in, when you go into the website, the web address is this one, and it's right at the top, and it's also going to be in your handouts. And so when you log into the website, it automatically pops this screen, so it's ready to work once you do it. What I do is I create a shortcut, so I right-click and then I create a shortcut. so that I can automatically double click on it whenever I'm on my computer, and then present that to my students. So let me just talk about these little things. So let's just pick a random item in the manipulatives, and then and let me show you the different things you can do with it. So right now I selected geometric solids. Okay, so you know, a lot of this I use them when I'm demonstrating certain things to my students. So for example, this square pyramid that I have right here, well, in here it's not really very visual that it is square. Let's just pretend that it is a square, because since it is a block, you can either designate this as a square pyramid, so now I'm writing, or a pyramid with the base of a square. Now, if I don't want to do writing, I can type it. And see, I can drag the objects around, and well, that one, you see, you're going to have to draw. You cannot drag. See, I'm dragging these. You cannot really drag that thing, because every stroke of your pen is considered as one object. So sometimes it is best for me to type something up, and my students, they like writing. So what I would do is have them write their solution in using the pen tool, but I also ask them to take a snippet of what they have, and then or print what they have, so that they are not, you know, they're not having a difficulty trying to drag all of these things together. So that's one. I also, the line tool is very useful because it helps me draw a straight line. So if I wanted to illustrate the height of a particular thing, I can draw the straight lines, and then I can label that as the height. And then if I wanted to get the length of of one of the sides of the square, I can use the same tool, the line tool, and I can even change the color. See, I'm going to change the color of that, and then I can designate that as the length of the side of the square at the bottom. Okay, sometimes I call it B. So it's very good to use the tool when I'm talking about different things. So now I've just showed you the text tool, the hand tool. The hand tool, again, is when you want to grab something. The text tool is if you want to type a text, just like what I typed in here. The pen tool is for handwriting. The line tool allows you to draw a line. And you see, when I clicked on the straight line tool, it gives me this toolbar. You can move this around if it's in your way, but you can adjust the width of your line and the transparency and the sharpness of your line. So it's really up to you what type of line you want to create, but sometimes, most of the time, I just use this standard. Now, once I click the line tool again, see that toolbar disappears. So that's how you can control that toolbar from popping in and out. Now let me show you the ruler. So the ruler, you can drag it by the corner, by one of the end where you see this little circle right here. You can drag it so that it aligns to the base. So let's just say I want a measurement of the base. Okay. In here, I'm going to try to get the exact of this base and see how I'm adjusting it to kind of meet. So right here, I have 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's how you can do that. And then the protractor is there if you wanted to measure angles. So for me, let's just pretend I want to measure this angle real quick. Let me just extend the lines. I'm going to go ahead and extend this line right here. And then I'm going to extend the other line. See how I can easily do that? Now here, you can use your protractor to measure that angle. So this is, you know, a very close, approximately 70 degrees. Right, it's about 70 degrees. So again, these tools are very useful when we're trying to look for, especially when I'm trying to look for areas of different types of polygons where the angle is very important. Okay, so, and these things right here, like for example, this protractor is a tool, so I can just simply click on the protractor tool to make it pop in or pop out. Okay? And again, you can reverse the angle using this toolbar right here. The angle can be reversed because sometimes the angle would come from the left side. So then you can reverse it in such a way. If I want to reverse the angle, let's just say, and see how the numbers just reverse itself. So you just simply click that reverse button. Now, but this one right here, oh, I'm on the pen tool. Just put that in the trash. Now, this object right here, the pyramid, I'm going to take it out. This is what you call an object. And this object, you can either drag the object back into the trash can, or you can just simply clear the objects. Oh, that cleared all of them. Because all of them are objects. Now let's talk about a background. A background is a more powerful tool, and you can get them right here. There are different types of backgrounds. We're going to start with work maths, and I'm just going to show you what a background looks like. For example, you want a centimeter grid. So students can easily draw their own X and Y axis in here. And then they can simply generate their own numbers and put their graphs. So it's very versatile how we can use a centimeter grid. The powerful tool about the centimeter grid is I can move, okay, not that one. The powerful thing about a centimeter grid is I can move the X and the Y axis to match. For example, I have more negative numbers. I can just simply drag this over here, and so then I can graph more negative X's. And if I have more negative Y's, then I can simply drag the Y-axis up so I can have a better view of my graph. So it's a very versatile tool that I can use with my class if we want to focus at a particular point or a particular section or region of the graph that is most appropriate for the word problem or the problem that we're trying to solve. So I've shown you all of that, the different coloring tools. In this case, the object here are the lines. So if I click on clear objects, it's going to remove the red X and the Y axis. Now, it doesn't remove this centimeter grid out of here. So in order for you to remove that so that you can move on to other activities, it's just simply click on the remove background. All right. So that is a very quick overview of all of the different tools, how to pull out manipulatives, how to pull out backgrounds, and then do things with them using all of the tools down here at the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for a little bit and then see some of your questions. Because if you have any questions, you can go ahead and chat with me using your chat button. And then you can type in the particular question you have. You want me to go back, review something. You can do that by just typing on your toolbar and going into the question button or the chat button. So let me just pause for a little bit, give you some time to ask any questions that you have so far. Oh, okay. Somebody was asking for the link. Again, the link can be uh, pulled up from the handout. Okay, so I provided the link. It's towards the end of your handout. You can pull up the handout when you first log into the webinar. There is a link there for all of the handouts. You can see the web link to go to this toolbar or to this web manipulative. Oh, and somebody's asking, can I show you how to enter numbers for the X and Y axis? That's really cool. Okay, so let me show you that. Okay, so let me go back to the background. I'm going to go to the work mat and then pick out centimeter grid. So for example, let me just redraw my X and Y axis. See, this time it's in black because I have selected the black one, the black color ink. So now I draw my X and Y axis. If I want my numbers, I can do one of two things. Okay, I can type up numbers. So for example, this would be 1. So see, when you type it up, it's not exactly where you want it to be. So you can use the hand tool to grab it and then say, okay, I want to put the 1 right here. But you don't always have to put the 1 right there. The 1 could be right here. So then in that case, this first area right here is going to be your 1/2 mark. And then if you want to put the 2, then you just type in 2 and then drag that 2 to where it's supposed to be. Or you can type directly to it. Sometimes I'm having difficulty trying to make sure it lands where I need it. So right there, the 3, I just need to move it a little bit so it falls directly on that 3. So I can put the number, or I can use the pen tool. Okay, and I'm gonna draw it in, and I can do -1, -2, -3. So now, for me, and a lot of my students, based on experience, they like doing the typing of the text because this one looks a little bit more dirty to them, and it's not very presentable. They don't like writing. But some of my students, they do like to write. Some of them are very used to writing by their hand, and they have good penmanship, and they have really straight hands, and they really have strong control over their hands. They like writing. Some of them are very very proficient in the use of their mobile device, like their Android tablet computers. So then they're so used to. But for me, for purposes of this presentation, since my screen is upright, I can't really write very well. But I just wanted to show you that you can do that as well, and then you can do that the same way going up for your y-axis. Okay, well, great question. So again, feel free to ask these questions, keep them coming, and I'm going to share with you some other neat things that I'm doing with this virtual manipulative. Okay, so we've went over the toolbar. So this time I want to go over some of the things or the activities that we can do. So I want to do a demonstration on spinners, probability and odds. And then I wanted to demonstrate a little bit on the fraction tiles, the operations on fractions, how I do equivalent fractions, reducing and ordering of the fractions using fraction tiles. I'm also going to, if we have time, I'm going to go over the number line. Actually, on the number line component, on the number line part, I've shown this quite a lot in the face-to-face workshop. So if we have time in the end, demonstrate the number line. But if not, again, I really do suggest that you sign up and register for our face-to-face workshops. We have one happening on the 29th of April in Miami-Dade College in Kendall. And then we also have a webinar happening in May during the Florida Literacy Conference, and I believe it's from May 3 through 5. If you happen to be attending the Florida Literacy Conference in Orlando, stop by and see how we demonstrate the use of the number line in doing operations on fractions. Okay, so let's go back to our virtual manipulative. I'm going to show you the spinner. So in here, I'm going to clear all my objects, and then I'm going to clear my background because I really don't need that in this activity. And under the manipulatives, you have all of these manipulatives at your disposal. Keep in mind that these are arranged in alpha order, okay, or they can be categorized by grade level. So if you know the GE level of your student, this becomes very powerful then, because if I'm teaching a GE level 4.5, then I'm going to just click on grade 4 and look at what manipulatives are available to me at that grade. So, you know, that just becomes a very powerful tool for me. So now in this particular case, I'm going to look for a spinner. All right. Again, the spinner tool, whatever you want, if you want 3, 4 outcomes, 6 different outcomes, we got 8 different outcomes, and then this are with color, and then this is in black and white. And then this one, the one in black and white, is numeric. So if you want to do certain activities with numeric. So I pulled one out. Let me just remove this again. Remove this object. Okay, and I'm going to show you, okay, let's just say we have 4 outcomes. I picked this outcome. All right, so all you got to do is to click on the start, and it will randomly spin the spinner. Oop. And then we're going to record that outcome as yellow. So you see how it is, it automatically tallies your outcome. So in this case, we have 1 hit for the yellow. So if I click the start again, it landed on blue. It automatically does that. So recording my data becomes so easy. You know, I just remind my students that every time I clear this screen, this data is not saved. So when they're done with their experimental probability activity, I ask them to take a snippet of it. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. So let's just see. Okay, let's just keep going. So look, we're going to do that. Quite a bit of. You do this enough, students will notice that the probability. Well, you do this several times, infinitely number of times. Students will realize that the probability in landing in each one of the regions or sections of the circle is equal, and it's 1 out of 4. Or 25% out of the time. So let's just say, okay, this is my data, this is my students, and let's just say we do a 15 spins. So in here, we got a total of 15 spins. 33% of the time it landed on green, 20% of the time it landed on blue and or red, and then 27% of the time it landed on yellow. Now, if I want my student to save this data, I'm just going to use the snipping tool. So in here, I have what we call a snipping tool. You can find it in your accessories tab when you click on your Windows button. But you see, if I can take a snippet of this. So see, I click on this new, and then my screen turns into gray, and I can block it, and drag a rectangle around that, and it automatically takes a picture of that section of my computer screen. And then I can save it, or I can copy it. Usually I copy it and then I pull out a Word document. For example, this is the Word document I'm working on, and I simply right-click and paste that. And so I have my results saved on it, and I can save it on the cloud, submit it, or turn it in to my teacher, or print it out for, for me to review at a later time. So that's the spinner tool. Sometimes I would be more creative and I would put something on the spinner tool. For example, group 1. Okay, so I would assign group 1 to the blue, and sometimes I would assign group 2 to the green. Oh, wait. And then I can type up, or I can even write, for example, let me pick blue, group, and then group 4. Now, if I do it in this case, now I can randomize which group can come up to the board and start working together to solve the problem. So if I do that, the spinner would land, okay, it's group 2's turn, so the group 2 can come up to the board and start doing things with whatever word problem or group activity I have assigned for them. So the spinner is not only used to develop their mathematics skills, the spinner is also used to manage the class. Sometimes I would use this tool right here, and I would give a number to every student. And if it lands on 0, it usually is free for all, meaning any student can volunteer. Any student can volunteer. Okay. So pretty much. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these objects. Now I want to show you fraction tiles. You see up here, I have multiple virtual manipulatives tabs right here. What I do is I copy and paste the web link to multiple screens. Let's say, for example, this is what I'm working on. I'm copying it, and then I'm going to paste it right here so that I have multiple screens ready. I don't have to keep typing the website. So you can see for this presentation, all of the activities we're going to do today, I already have opened up. Okay? So in here, right here in this particular case, I'm going to show you adding and simplifying fractions. So for example, I give you can use these fraction tiles. You can use them by dragging and dropping them into the screen. And I ask them, okay, well, what would this be? Okay, if I add 1 and 1/3, what would this be in improper fraction? Okay, so then I do a lot of those activities and drill and practice with my students. But in this case, I have this right here. So I wanted to illustrate the equivalent fractions to my students. So if I ask them, okay, what is 1/4 plus 1/4? So I give them all of the techniques that the rules that we use to simplify fractions. My students would write, oh, that is 2/4. You just simply add the numerators together and keep the same denominator. Okay, well then I will ask my student, okay, well, can you simplify your answer? So then my student will say, okay, well, when you simplify that, the top number or the numerator and the bottom number or the denominator are both divisible by 2. So if I divide the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator by the same number, I automatically get an equivalent fraction. So if I divide the numerator by 2, it will become a 1. And then if I divide the denominator by 2, it will be a 2. So therefore, the simplified fraction is 1/2. Now, I have 1/2 sitting up here because I wanted to show something to my students. That if you have that I want them to see if I put 1/4 and another 1/4 together, and so students can intuitively see, oh, that's what's happening. That is why 1/4 plus 1/4 comes out to 1/2 and not, okay, or that is why 1/4 plus 1/4 comes out to 2/4 and not 2/8. Because a lot of my students would ask me, why don't you add the denominators? You know, and in this case, I could easily explain the rationale behind the rule just by showing them these fraction tiles. You know, so I can do that again. Okay, let's practice what we've learned again in adding fractions, and let's add 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. So in this case, again, follow the same rule that we've discussed. We add all the numerators together and then keep the same denominator. Okay, so for this problem, the answer would be 4 out of 8. Okay, well, again, I asked my students, okay, let's try to simplify that fraction real quick. So if I drag 4 of these, I want to add 4 of them, and if I line them up side by side, they can see that 4 1/8, make sure that they don't overlap, that 4 1/8 is the same length as a 1/2 fraction tile. So that means when I simplify 4/8, eventually it will come out to be 1/2. And that is truly the case. Since the numerator and the denominator are both divisible by 4, I can simply do and simplify that into 1/2 as well. So I use this a lot. You know, I do the activity with 1/6 and 1/3 and 1/5 and things like that, just to practice my students with that particular rule in adding and subtracting fractions. Now, when it comes to multiplying and dividing fractions, the fraction tiles becomes a little bit tedious to use if I wanted to illustrate. It is possible, and I can show that if we have time later, but what I found out is I can use the geoboard much better and much faster and more efficiently if I use, you know, when I'm teaching multiplying and dividing fractions. All right, so at this point I'm just going to pause for a little bit and look at the questions here, see if you are following along. Okay, somebody said somebody tried to use the app using an iPad or an iPad mini, and they said that it needs to have an Adobe app or a Flash player for you to be able to use that. If you have an Android device, it has to be a particular version of the Android operating system for you to be the one that supports the Flash player. A lot of the newest versions, they already have that Flash player pre-installed, and so therefore you can use it. Now, if you go in and use your Google Chrome browser, I don't know, you might want to try it using your Google Chrome browser or your Google Chrome app and try pulling it out of that app instead of doing it in Safari. So see if that works. And another question here, does the app go over how to use these tools correctly? And then can the spinners be made larger? Okay, so again, if you want a quick tutorial of how to use all of these tools, you can go into the help menu, and that's available for you. The spinners cannot be made any larger. Let's try that. I have not actually tried that before because when I project it to my students, I usually, let me go into a blank screen and let's go back to that spinner. There may be a way to enlarge it. No. Oh, yes, there is. There is. If at the bottom right here you see a minus and a plus magnifying, and if you click the plus, it doesn't do much. Oh, yes, you can keep clicking the plus to keep enlarging that, but you don't want it to go beyond this because then you won't be able to see it, and then you can minimize it as well. So you can maximize it by continuously clicking on the plus, And that plus doesn't appear there automatically. If you click on the object, it automatically gives it a little bit a border, and then there's that plus sign right there. Okay. Okay, so for the purposes of I'm going to copy this because a lot of you are asking for this website and cannot be found. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you another set of handouts. I'm going to send in a handout at the end of this webinar that just gives that link, and I'm going to put it in PDF so you can click on that link and it will directly lead you to the website. Yeah, it will lead directly to your website. This is the complete, oh, it's not going to fit. I'm going to try to, okay, so I'm going to try to send you the link as soon as we finish this webinar so that you can access that. Okay, another thing that I wanted to show you is the coordinate grid. The coordinate grid, you can pull it out of backgrounds. If you click on backgrounds, you go to work mats, and it's in alpha order, and you go into just coordinate grid. As you can see, as I scroll down, it gives me a view of what I'm trying to pull. So really, if I want, let's say, an equation mat or an equation chart, then I can see it right now and see how it looks like before I even put it. Just keep in mind, once you click it, it will automatically paste over what you already have. So I don't want to do that right now because right now I already pulled the equation chart, the coordinate grid right here, and this is what it looks like. And then at the beginning of this webinar, I kind of typed these random ordered pairs, X and Y, right here. And what I do with this is I give my students a timer, and I give them, let's say, okay, 5 seconds or 10 seconds for you to plot all of the points. So then one of my students will come up and see, okay, well, 0, -1 would be right here. Oops, time's up. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so 0, -1 would be right here. Okay, and then I'm going to put 1, -3. So I'm going to just plot all of these points together. -1 and 1. Oops, made a mistake there real quick. Let me just grab that and throw it in the trash. And then if I wanted to go, the last one is -3, +5. So I'm going to go -3, 1, 2. So now I have points. Well, what I've noticed here is that my points kind of resemble a straight line. So now if I wanted to draw a line, then, or a line of best fit, or a straight, I can use the straight line tool. You maybe use a different color, let's say green, and then try to see if I can connect the dots. Okay, so this is kind of like the line of best fit. If I wanted to draw the line of best fit, a lot of my students, I would ask them to draw a scatter plot on the screen or in their computer. I would give them an equation and then graph the equation using the coordinate grid. And then again, what they're going to do is they're going to take a snippet of, once they're finished graphing, they're going to take a snippet of their screen and copy and paste it on Word. So in this case, I'm going to copy this work, and I'm going to go to my Word document and see that's the one that we had before. I'm just going to, maybe I'll just paste it right underneath it, and see my work is right there saved on Word. And then I can print it anywhere or save it anywhere I want to. So again, Very powerful tool. I do a lot of linear modeling, solving equation, graphing functions, using the coordinate grid. Um, Sometimes when we do real-world problems, sometimes when I do real-world problems, a lot of the numbers that are going to be we're working off, let's say we're doing money, is going to be in the positives. So then, therefore, in terms of the work mat that I want to do, I only want the first quadrant grid. So here you got the first quadrant right here. You don't need your negative numbers, negative x's and your negative y's. So therefore, it's much easier for the student to graph and focus on a particular section of the coordinate grid. So again, very powerful tool. I use it a lot with my students. Another thing that I do with my students is an in and out table. An in and out table allows me to ask to help my students in determining a particular pattern in a sequence of numbers, or if I wanted to do, let's say, find the equation that best describes the pattern of the numbers. So all you got to do is just, I would randomly put numbers right here, 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe -4, -6, -8, -10, -12. And I ask my students to create an equation to describe the relationship, describe whether this is a function, and I do a lot of activities with them. And I use them with a timer or a stopwatch to kind of determine how long it will take them to do it. Sometimes a lot of these backgrounds are storyboards. So storyboards it allows me to create a scene or a scenario for a particular word problem. There's a ton of pictures and storyboards here. I just picked this one, which is a camping one, because let's say you wanted to do Pythagorean theorem with your students, and all you got to do is kind of illustrate the problem. You already have, let's say you're looking for the height of the tent. Okay, and then given the, let's say, this length, or the base. We can even look at the entire length of the base or half the base, which is what we need in this case in order to generate the height. So if we're looking for the height in particular, then I can use this storyboard background to kind of put my students in the scene of the problem that we're trying to solve. There's a lot of things that you can do as well. You can model. You can do independent practice. Sometimes I would do assessment in here. For example, I will have already, like in this case, I pulled up a storyboard. From the storyboard, I put up a background, and I put in an in and out table, and I gave an equation at the top, and I want them to complete the table. So at least what they're doing is they're trying to complete the ordered pairs so that they can graph it at a later time. So sometimes I would work with multiple backgrounds so for the students to complete a particular activity. So once they're done completing this chart, I would then have them pull up the equation, the coordinate grid, so that they can graph their answer and see it and describe the line. Is the slope positive? Is the slope negative? How does the line look like? Those types of things. You can also use this as graphic organizer. So again, you can put different types of things. Let's say type in all the different types of quadrilaterals, since these are already rectangular in shape. And then other things that you can do is place value. There is a place value one. I want to show that to you real quick before. So if you go into background and you go into storyboards, you can look at place value. There's one, there's here the tens and the ones place value table. There's hundreds values tables. There's a lot of storyboards that you can use to develop different things. Okay. So again, just like I said, I use these storyboards to model different things. I create a worksheet out of these storyboards so they become less mundane and a little bit more, animated. I group work with my students, so they pull this up from their tablet and they do different projects, or they create their own problem. I use it as a graphic organizer. This tool, let's say if I'm trying to classify different things right here at the top, I use this with my students to classify, let's say, different types of squares, triangles, different types of polygons. We play games, so there is a game toolbar as well. So let me just go to that games toolbar. If you go into game boards, there's several games here. Let's say, let me clear the objects. So right here, there is a game. You already have the instructions in the game in here, and you already have the background, and it tells you what you need. In here, you need a dice, okay? And then you can, all you have to do is follow the instructions in the game. So, a lot of, I use that to develop math fluency and also add a little bit more excitement to the classroom. You also have reference. In the reference area, for example, your multiplications chart or your hundreds chart, you already have that. Your times tables are there. So you can easily, or the students can easily pull it up. And sometimes I already mentioned that I use these storyboards and these backgrounds to create my own worksheets. Or we can do it in class, in the front of the class, as a group. So again, linear modeling, other ideas are area, volume, surface area problems. I do that using the storyboard. We already talked about the spinners, and we do a lot of theoretical versus experimental probability, and then we do a lot of modeling using these manipulatives. Again, there's other manipulatives out there that may do similar things, so I'm providing you the links to those manipulatives. There is one that you can download into your iPhone. This one particularly is compatible with iPhone or iOS versions. And then the Math Playground is also another one. There's different manipulatives out there that is similar to what I showed you. What I like about the one that I showed you is a little bit more versatile because I can create my own content. I could create my own activities. I could create assessment that really align with my topic for the day. A lot of the manipulatives from these other websites and from these other apps, they're already pre-created for me. So sometimes it's not a perfect fit for what I just did to review the skill that I showed. But there still are very many great tools and resources out here that you can explore. National Library of Virtual Manipulatives is very useful to me because it breaks it down to different subject areas. So it separates statistics apps to geometry apps to algebra apps. And then the Math Playground is by content. So, if I want to do measurement and I want an 8th grade measurement activity, you can easily locate an activity for that level in the Math Playground. I usually use the Math Playground when we do games in class. And again, a lot of these things are already available from the IPDay website. So again, from the handouts from this webinar, you can review. If I spoke too fast and went over some of the tools very quickly, again, this is going to be recorded, and within 24 to 48 hours, this webinar will be up. You can play it again, look at the different tips and tricks that I showed you today, and then do it and try it out with your class and with your students. So again, what I did is I showed you some things that can help you in planning. your lessons in the future, that you have these resources to use. I gave you one tool that is very versatile. You can use it with your students to teach your class. And do group activities. And then lastly, I talked about how you can use this as an assessment tool for your students. And then again, I really wanted to thank you for being and joining our webinar this afternoon. Hopefully you were able to get some really cool ideas and tricks that you can do with your students in class. Please take the survey, copying and pasting or typing in the web address above the SurveyMonkey link, or if you have an iPhone or a scanner, you can scan the barcode or the QR code from your handout, and it will automatically direct you to the SurveyMonkey survey. I'd like to hear from you and know what you think. I'd like to know what parts of the webinar you want me to continue, or do we need more of this, do we need more of that? So feel free to please take the survey, and I'd love to hear from you soon. So again, this is Ron Cruz, and thanking all of you for participating in this afternoon's webinar, and I appreciate your time, and I hope you will join us in our next webinar. Have a wonderful afternoon.